All right, what an evening, and we are on the new Firebird, highly anticipated new bike for me, as I've been riding the last generation in a size medium. We went with the size large in this test. Kind of wanted to shake it up, even though I really loved the agility of the medium. And this bike is definitely a new flavor. So if you're new to the Firebird platform, basically it's Pivot's enduro race bike. It's basically like a more highly sprung, feisty enduro bike. It's got a very progressive rear leverage suspension curve and that DW link giving you quite a bit of anti-squat. But yeah, this bike definitely got the update treatment. Got a steeper C-tube angle, which I can always appreciate. And I definitely feel the number out on the trail here. And then an adjustable chainstay on this size large. That means 435 millimeter, which is kind of one of my favorite chainstay lengths. And then it goes all the way to 443. So 8 millimeters of adjustment via a really cool swing link. But even in the shorter chainstay setting, your weight is definitely far more forward biased than the outgoing model. Just feels like a slight evolution. I feel like these Firebirds tend to feel more balanced while climbing than the numbers appear, maybe due to the extra support from the anti-squat. Just heard my pedal scrape, and that's another major theme for me on this bike. Bottom bracket is, I think it's 5 millimeters lower, and I've been feeling it. I really love a low bottom bracket. Really gives this bike probably the strongest flavor difference that I'm feeling. Definitely feel more sunk into the bike and therefore kind of aggressive. It just, we'll get to it more on descending, but certainly makes me feel more on attack, which has just been such a fun flavor to throw into the already very agile Firebird platform. Yeah, probably my only gripe while climbing is how they spec this bike with a 32 tooth chainring, which I'm not sure what grade that would feel right to me on, but certainly getting above like a 10% grade. Just feel like I could go to a 30, or I'll probably set it up eventually with a 28 tooth. But yeah, I'd say the climbing kinematics maybe feel a touch squishier, or exactly the same as the outgoing bike. Feels like you're gonna have no problem generating traction and just adding that balance with the saddle being a bit more further forward. It's gonna really balance things out. But ultimately, my experience with all these pivots is they just seem to want to go while climbing. And that's really one of the top reasons I love this Firebird. Just the emphasis on efficiency, lightweight, and climbing ability. Just not doing a high pivot or anything that sucks wattage out of the chain. Just leaning on a really nice DW suspension platform and freeing you up to just get to the top of the mountain efficiently. I've just been so smitten by the Firebird platform for that ability to just efficiently carry the amount of travel that it does up the mountain with it. It's got a faster ramp up in the suspension kinematic than a lot of other 170 millimeter bikes. But it gives you that race spread, wanna pedal feel. All right, we are to the top. Beautiful night. on a fantastic rig. Not a bad situation. I think I already just caught a little pedal back there. I've got some really big Cro-Mag pedals on this bike, but definitely sits lower, which I was gonna say is like probably my number one observation about this bike. And I feel like there's really no replacement for a low bottom bracket height when it comes to like that dig your heels in feeling of confidence. And to combine that with this peppy bike DW Link suspension is just, it's a super fun evolution of this bike. Yeah, the rear shock tune is definitely a bit more, I feel a bit more compression just inherently in the stroke. Super easy to pop that front end up. That's so fun. It's got the 435 chainstays to, you know, resist you. So it's easy to pop the front end up. This reach does give me a good amount of extra confidence over the medium size, I'd say, like at speed. But yeah, it probably feels a hair less nimble. But yeah, back to the rear shock tune. I feel like it's a little bit more on the plugged up side, but plugged up in a way that feels like it's kind of eating energy, which is really nice. So the bike feels quite settled and planted for a Firebird. Yee! Super easy to just feel like you're pushing this bike into the trail and just kind of putting the tires exactly where you want. I feel like it's begging me to be as confident as I can getting the weight over the front end. And then when you do, you just get a whole lot of control and precision. What this bike retains, which I just love, is that ability to just slash the rear end around. Like if you're coming up tight on a corner, you just feel like you can unweight the suspension and move that rear end into position. And being on a bike with this much confidence and yet still having the ability to just kind of whip it around like a smaller bike is why I fell in love with the Firebird in the first place. And it's so cool that they retain that, but in a way that feels a bit more speed focused on this version. This bike feels a bit more driven, planted, and like it's got me just wanting to kind of dig into the landscape for speed and feeling a little bit more confident to drive into the backside of doubles and that kind of thing. But yeah, I love the playfulness of the rear end on these bikes. Yee! Oh, what a beautiful night. Okay, standout feature for sure is getting a set of Mavens on this bike. You just feel like you can come into features, whoo, a little off camber there. Can't come into features so hot and just shut it down. I haven't noticed too much about the Cryptotol tires, especially in the nicer weather we've been having. So they feel confident and composed to me. That's about all I can say so far. I mean, conditions are a hair slidey right now, and they're doing well. There's also a certain feeling that comes from the rear end of this bike. I think they're one of the holdouts running a Super Boost wheel, which adds strength and stiffness, and then having the single piece carbon rear end. But man, yeah, I feel like something about that rear end just feels so confident, and when you like slap it around, it just doesn't feel like it has a whole lot of give to it. Bike felt really composed through that nasty little bit there. Yeah, this bike is really, it's like driving quite hard for having the playfulness that it has. And when you combine those two kind of things together, it is something. I feel like this rock garden right here is getting more hairball, and it is dry today, which helps a ton, but yeah, felt like I just sent it through there. I mean, conditions are incredible, so that helps. Yeah, I'm used to things being so slippery throughout the winter, and now we have really good traction. Yeah, I'll say as we're just hammering along this trail, it feels like I'm on a 170 millimeter bike, but it's not like an insanely magic carpet ride sensation. There's a lot of buildup in that rear end, a little bit more compression damping back there, and I guess even the fork's got a little bit of feedback. Speeds are high, dirt's getting harder, but yeah, I feel like it's a little bit more poised kind of bike, less of a floppy, you know, super comfort machine. But that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has heard of the Firebird. Yeah, it feels like it wants to drive harder than the last bike, for sure. Oh, it's got me feeling kind of racy at times. And fairly quiet sounding bike. I'll shut up here for a second, you can listen to it. Just a hair bit of chain slap. Yeah, as far as the component spec on this bike, probably the number one standout game changer for me is the Mavens. Comes with the silvers. They just feel so impressive. Make steep trails, you're so much more confident on steep trails. It is ridiculous. And then you got the Fox 38 up front with the Grip X2 factory stanchions. Yeah, it feels great. I like how the damping can be a little bit more wide open on the new Grip X2 stuff. And then that rear Float X2, which I've said, it feels tuned a little bit more like racy. I wish that could be, the damping could be open to hair, but maybe these shocks are still breaking in. That is possible. Man, that rear wheel feels so confident slapping around. Yeah, you get the Reynolds Black Label wheels, which look really sweet this year. Maybe feel more compliant? I don't know. Can't say for sure, but. And then the SRAM XO drivetrain. Feeling, yeah, just precise. Keeping that chain nice and quiet. But stand out, definitely the brakes. But yeah, who's this bike for? I'd say this bike is just for somebody who likes a zesty but capable bike that pedals to the top really efficiently. They don't need their bike to feel, they actually don't want their bike to feel like too stable and planted. They want something nimble and fun and slashy. Or somebody who wants to race, that's just looking for kind of peak performance. But yeah, if you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And for the full write-up, head to freehub.com. It's already up there. It's been up for a few weeks. Yay! Oh my gosh, what a beautiful night.